Felicitous greetings, fellow fanatics. Welcome back, everyone. I'm Fanatic, and today we're going to do things a little differently. Instead of doing my usual review, I'm instead going to be interviewing Breeze Grigas, the founder of Zephyr Workshop and the lead mind behind AEGIS. For those unfamiliar with AEGIS, it's a strategic combat game where 2 to 6 players field teams of 5 robots that can combine to form stronger robots. I took some time on Discord to both interview and play a game against Breeze. Hopefully, this will help you get some insight into the game, as well as its path for the future. Welcome, Breeze, and thank you for joining us. It's been a little over 2 years since AEGIS first released, but Rome wasn't built in a day, and neither was Sagaia. About how long did Zephyr Workshop take to release AEGIS, from inception to the finished product?
Well, AEGIS was a very long and arduous process to make. It started as a senior project when I was in college, and we basically started on it as students who didn't really know how to do anything at all. And through lots of trial and error, the game took about 6 years to come out. It was split up into kind of 3 eras of like 2 years of self-publishing, 2 years of working with another publisher, and then the final 2 years of doing it ourselves. So we basically made the game like 3 times before it finally got released. So a bit of development hell there. But it finally came out, and that's cool. We had a lot of fun in the last 2 years running around and selling the game all around. Yeah, six whole years.
Like any business endeavor, I'm sure the road was anything but smooth. Although we can't expect you to spill all your secrets, are there any particular hardships that you'd like to share?
Oh man, there are a lot. I guess my favorite one was PAX East 2014. We started making the game early 2013, and then like PAX East 2014 was going to be like basically the launch, quote unquote, of our self-published version of the game. It was the worst through like a whole bunch of general inexperience and poor planning and lots of trial and error. We ended up getting a good 100 copies of the game together, and this was back when we were literally hand-making the boxes and sourcing all the components from different places and then together through arts and crafts project. But we had like nothing to sell like 3 weeks ahead of the convention, and we put all of that stuff together actually while the convention was going. Like the mats that you played on, which are now boards, but the mats that you played on in those original paper prototype versions were sourced from somewhere. I think they were like custom wrapping paper from some, or they were posters or something, and we got a bunch of those made. And they didn't come in until Friday of PAX East, which means we had to leave PAX East, get them from wherever they showed up, in like rural Massachusetts somewhere. And we had to assemble them, put them together, take them back into PAX East. And it was probably the most stressful portion of my life, that like window of a few weeks around PAX East 2014. Because I remember just a few months prior, I had done a vast majority of the art for AEGIS in like a 2-week sprint, like really slammed it all together. And then that was like over Christmas, and then like just lots of stressing out. Then when finally spring rolled around, this is probably in like early March or something here. Yeah, like all the components, like there was no game. We were like on our like weekly meeting, and there like we don't know where anything is, with nothing was really ordered correctly, and we kind of like we really pulled a miracle out there. And I don't think me in my current old age would ever have the energy to do something like that again. And like we probably gave up some years of my life there. We're just making sure everything got ordered and showed up correctly and was actually there for PAX East. And like the PAX East booth we had was like in the Indie Mega booth, and like we were all broke, and so like the money to even get into that to begin with was like borrowed. So we didn't have any. We had like $0 in all of our bank accounts. We were like college postgrads with no jobs. So yeah, that was rock and roll. That was a story that you would be told. This is what entrepreneurship truly is. You really just slam your face into an endeavor, and you sacrifice life force to make the dream happen. And we did, and we had those games there in their crappy paper boxes that were printed out at Staples and cut out and glued and assembled in a coffee and monster fueled rampage, and then dumped off the morning after, on Saturday morning of PAX. And we ended up just making it happen, and it was great. So yeah, it's a fun story to tell. Wouldn't want to relive it again though.
Can't say I blame you.
Oh yeah. And then one other story, several years later when we had to ship the actual final version of AEGIS that everyone knows and currently loves. We had, this was going to be our first Gen Con. This was 2018. We had our first booth bought at Gen Con. We were probably $7,000 or $8,000 deep into this trip between the booth, coupon book, and stay, airplanes. We try not to calculate food and lifts and all this other stuff. But it was very expensive to go there, and the plan was to launch AEGIS there. We had to, because the games were just still in China. They had just came off the line, and we needed to get some amount of games. I believe it was 200 some odd games from China to the doorstep of the convention center immediately. There's like a whole bunch of stuff that's involved with that. When you order 1,000 pounds of stuff from the exact opposite end of the planet, it has to go through all these checks and all this other stuff, and you have to work with a shipping company and all these other things. So we did that, and we had it ship off July. It took about 2 weeks to get there, and it arrived on the morning we arrived at Japan. I believe it arrived on Tuesday or Wednesday morning, without a single day to spare. If anything had happened, anything at all, we would have just been thousands of dollars in the hole with nothing to sell at Gen Con. And so that was the modern version. And then looking back on that, this was much more expensive and much more technically and logistically impressive than what we did in PAX East. So there was a lot of professional and personal growth there, except for planning things appropriately. But we also made it happen. We summoned those 200 some odd boxes from China, and they showed up on the day of. Had them show up at a hotel because they didn't have receiving fees. Guy get off the plane on our crappy red-eye flight at 7 a.m. Did 900 pounds of boxes show up. The lady on the other line was like, I have no idea what you're talking about. And so I proceed to call them 2 or 3 more times. Like, are you sure? You positive? I've checked with these other people. They say it arrived. Can you please, how do you miss this? Is it there? Is it there? The lady on the other end just was adamant that nothing was there, until finally I got the manager, and the manager's like, okay, let me check. And she hangs up the phone, walks away, comes back 5 minutes later, and she's like, yes, they are there. I don't know why the receptionist didn't tell you they were there. They're taking up half of our shipping space. And then when we finally got there, that was the most infuriating thing, because the shipping room was legitimately 10 feet from where the receptionist was standing. All you had to do was walk around the corner and see the 2 gigantic pallets of cardboard boxes. So that was the heart attack of PAX East 2018. It was just oh my god, the games are not here. We're screwed. We're so screwed. But yeah, so that worked out. Making the hardest part about making this game, a lot of the big hard parts have been the actual publishing of it. The getting physical products to a place and selling it, and those are definitely the biggest hardships. That's the stuff that you don't learn. That's the stuff that we didn't learn in school about design and drawing robots. That's all cute. It's all easy. Well, maybe easy for you. Oh yeah. Yeah, exactly. Comparatively easy. Everything is relative. But, and these are things we just did not know how to do, and we figured it out and we got there. If I could do it better, I would. But now we know how to do it better because we did it the really dumb ways the first couple times. If we do poor planning on the next couple times, then we know that we have not learned anything.
One of the great things about AEGIS is the variety in the box, but amongst all that variety, do you have a favorite commander to use?
Let's see, yeah, I do. I honestly really I think I'm still biased towards Diane, aka one of the only commander robots that I actually did the art for in the final game. She worked out really well. I like using her. She feels powerful. It feels good to roll the 6s and get headshots. She's very strong on her own, and it's fun to do stuff on your opponent's turn when she gets to retaliate on enemy robots. So yeah, it's definitely up there. She also looks cool, and her robot looks cool. Just generally one of the coolest commanders and characters that we have in the first box in general.
It's pretty clear from the Gatai concept that AEGIS was inspired by anime. What would you say were your biggest inspirations when making AEGIS? Be they anime, other games, or anything else that was important to you?
Initially, AEGIS came about when we were making our senior capstone project in college. Up until that point, I grew up watching Power Rangers from age 4 or 5 and up. And then I used to rent one of the older Getter Robo VHSs and like the 80s Transformers movie from Blockbuster pretty much every week. And those are like my formative, primordial, creative muses. And then, as you grow up, I watched Fooly Cooly, and then Gurren Lagann was the other really big formative thing. After that, things are mostly redundant. I watched, the whole Gainax back catalog, your Gunbuster, your Diebuster, Gao Gaigar, and a bunch of other stuff, a bunch of other Super Robot stuff. In terms of video games, big formative thing for me was Fire Emblem for the GBA. It really was the first kind of tactics game that I really liked. Final Fantasy Tactics and other games never really clicked with me because I don't really know why. When 12, 13-year-old Breeze played Fire Emblem, and it just hit. The game was so fast and so simple, and I kind of, even at 12 years old, I understood what all the numbers and stuff were, and I understood why my decisions, why combat were important. Throughout through the rest of my adolescence and the college, in terms of tactics games, that game kind of set a bar of what I liked in that kind of genre. I always thought that strategic and tactical games in games in general should be about figuring out the systems as quickly and as painlessly as possible, and then your mental effort should be going into the actual, playing the game. So when we started AEGIS, it was started as a original creator was really into Warhammer or War Machine and actual war game. And those I remember I asked him to describe them to me because I had no experience with them whatsoever, and I'm like, okay, tell me everything about how Warhammer works. And through the entire explanation, I was the game flies just the bigger, more complicated games. I'm like, why would I ever want to do this? I mean, I just want to roll dice and punch things and figure out if I'm doing it, and figure out if I'm winning. I don't want to read a textbook. Why would anyone want to do this? It's just baffling because I came from a completely different world, playing Fire Emblem, playing Advance Wars, playing all these JRPGs where the systems are dropped on you and taught to you in such intuitive ways, and then you see these the bigger war games that are kind of relics of the 80s or whatever. It's just I don't even know. I don't want to make something like this. If I'm going to make something like this, I want to make something definitely a lot more streamlined, definitely so that anyone who just wants to play with the subject matter of robots can just figure out if their strategy is working. And the combining, that was right around when Return to Ravnica was coming out. And so during that exact talk where my buddy there was telling me about Warhammer, I was looking through old art that I had done for some previous issues. And I had this little piece of this little robot, this little rocket pod with legs that I had sketched 3 years prior that was just still chilling in my folders. I was thinking about color combinations from Ravnica where you could put two colors together and you get a new ability that shares both greater than the sum of their parts. I was listening to this explanation about tactics game. It kind of all, I remember the exact moment where it all flung together. The tiny picture of the robot that I had, the magic on my brain, and then the explanation of tabletop war game. It literally, all the basic tenets of AEGIS together, and within that next 24 hours, it all just slotted together perfectly. So everything that pretty much made it through the final game, the 5 classes, the name of the game, the basics of dice rolling mechanics, the energy sharing, those were all thought of very quickly. We kind of had that as the core of the game and changed other stuff over time. That premise, that's how it came about, and that's what we've kind of been moving forward with the whole time.
You uploaded a full mod of AEGIS to Tabletop Simulator, and since then, Ogureyama has made some very useful scripting for the mod. If and when you make a new game, be it the upcoming AEGIS Season 2 or something entirely new, do you think you'll release it fully on Tabletop Simulator as well?
Yeah, probably. It's definitely, Tabletop Simulator has been very, very good about just letting people try the game and play it and enjoy it. Anyone who can experience the game in any way, shape, or form has a higher chance to ultimately buy the physical version. So yeah, we'll probably put most of our games in Tabletop Sim, and also ScreenTop.gg is a new one. We'll probably highlight that a lot on our next Kickstarter too. It's we never really screwed with Tabletopia at all, so I don't really know if that's good or not, but ScreenTop is very, very promising, and we actually have a in that. It's another browser-based thing that doesn't overheat your laptop. We have an AEGIS 2 demo in that, and we'll highlight that on the AEGIS 2 Kickstarter page along with Kickstarter version. we'll continue to put with the fact that we can't really leave the house or test any of our games with other people because, the apocalypse, we're gathering a lot of our other games into Tabletop Simulator 2. So I've asked Ogre Yama to put in our other good game, Uproot Arboreal Battleship, and that's getting into Tabletop Simulator after languishing on the shelf for like a year. Up until now, we didn't know how to put in a Tabletop Simulator either. It has like a weird, hard Fanatic sort of mechanic that we just didn't know how to accomplish. But Ogre Yama is an absolute wizard, and he came up with all sorts of really cool solutions, and that demo is coming along really well. And I hope that I'm going to be able to, play it with all y'all.
Certainly looking forward to that. On the subject of Season 2, what can you tell us about it?
Ah, yes, Aegis Season 2. Let me ask you something, Mario. What do you think we should call Aegis Season 2? Should we just call it Aegis Season 2?
I personally see nothing wrong with that. Maybe if there's an event in the storyline that it's particularly important, name after that.
So Aegis Season 2 is a standalone expansion, which means you can buy this box and enjoy it until the end of time without ever having to buy or own the first box, but they are also cross-compatible, like entirely. We're just trying to think about branding of it. Do we just call it Season 2? I mean, it worked for Dice Throne. At first I wanted to avoid putting a 2 anywhere on the box, because that might turn people off of getting the game, because maybe it implies that they want/need the first box when that's not the case. That's neither here nor there. Aegis Season 2, or whatever it may be called, it'll have entirely new content, all new characters, all new robots, some new game modes, new board stuff, obviously all new artwork. So yeah, we're making it to be a good standalone kind of experience. We've taken a lot of the feedback of Aegis's first box, and we're trying to make it even more streamlined and have even less of a learning curve than Aegis currently has, which is one of Aegis's common criticisms, is that even though you're only looking at 5 cards, sometimes the cards look like absolute calculus. Once you know the syntax, it's very easy to get into the game, but we still want to dial back the comprehension complexity of the game, so you can teach your friends easier. As someone who's not necessarily into lots of board games but does fighty, tactical MOBAs and video games and stuff like that, you can look at this game and kind of grok it, because that's actually one of our biggest audiences. We sell a majority of our games at Hack and other gaming and anime conventions, where people aren't necessarily huge board gamers. They don't know all of the terminology, and they don't have a library or shelf of 400 board games. All the really nice people at Gen Con are in that crowd, but at the video game and the anime conventions, our game really resonates. So we want to really think about that audience too, rather than trying to compete with the 4,000 board games that get released a year. It'd be nice for us to be one of the prestige cardboard products that these video gamers own. So we went through and we looked at the cards in Aegis 2, and one of the major things you're going to notice is that a lot of the single letter robots, the level 1 robots, have just the 1 attack now instead of 2 different attacks, but we compensated that by giving them more interesting passive abilities. So there's more kind of cool noodly stuff you can do in combat and while playing the game without having to be super overwhelmed by what the card looks like. Taking complexity up one part of the game and sticking it on other parts of the game. The other thing that we kind of implemented in this game is we put in some new combine effect, so we want to make combining in general feel more rewarding. There is a common criticism with Aegis 1 where combining 2 robots together can sometimes feel like a downgrade in terms of either power or usefulness. So all 2-letter robots in Aegis 2, or I think a vast majority of them, have 2 attacks. So now you have all these level 1 robots with 1 attack and all these level 2 robots with 2 attacks. So it's much more intuitive to look at and see that, oh, okay, I can put 2 robots with 1 attack each together and make a robot that has 2 attacks. And now it's very obviously a combination. Whereas in Aegis 1, you had a bunch of level 1 robots that all had 2 attacks, so 4 across 2 robots. And then some level 2 robots that only had 1 attack. And you'd end up with certain situations from first impressions, be like, why would I want to put these 2 robots together when they have 4 attack and this much health and make a robot that only has 1 attack and can only act 1 time, And there are contextual reasons why you would obviously want to do that. But I wanted to shave off that initial impression. So level 2 and level 3 robots were very obviously gooder and more powerful. To add on to that, we have new combine effects that are on the lower level robots. So when you combine the lower level robots together, you'll get multiple cascading abilities when you combine right off the bat. So you can combine these 2 guys, and the 2 level 1 robots might both have combine effects, and you'll be able to heal somebody a minor amount and damage somebody for 1 damage, and then you make the level 2 robot, and then that robot might be able to do a cool explodey thing that deals a bunch of damage to everybody around it. So it feels like there is a distinct tactical swing when you combine, even more so than before. Lastly, we're also experimenting with a new skinnier board for quicker 2-player games. It's actually hard to tell if it's made the game quicker. Currently, the big board that you get in Aegis 1 is a big huge rectangle. There's a 2-player side and a 4-player side, but they're both like the same size with the same amount of hexes. So in the Aegis 1, it's usually there's no combat or interaction. You have like a full turn or two of like positioning before the actions. With this new board that we're trying, which is half the size of the old board for 2 players, it will let you get into that action faster and skirmish a lot faster and make it so the game flows a lot quicker. Experimenting with new types of like terrain modifiers, which we wanted to keep out of the first box because the robots were some terrain rules in there. But now that the overall robots are simpler, we can stick in some simple terrain modifiers in this one, like standing in bushes to get like big instant bonuses and that. Going around with a new game mode right now. I feel like that losing a robot in Aegis can be really punishing, and we have like a mechanic called scrap combining that lets you combine with dead robots that kind of like put a band-aid on that as like a catch-up mechanic. And after playing some similar games that are potentially coming to market, I wanted to think on a game mode that lets you throw Aegis on the table, play with your robots, and just not worry about them dying. You can just keep bringing them back and fight robots against your opponent and try out all of your various strategies without having to worry about all your combines being shut off because you lost your robot. So we're working on a new game mode with that. That's more of a deplete your opponent's like life total sort of thing, where you summon robots, you punch your opponent, and if your robots die, they bounce back on the following turn, and if your combined robots die, they'll come back as their individual components. It's like a life total depletion sort of thing slash like points accrual sort of thing. And I think that's going to be really important. For now, I think we're going to set the goal of making the 2 and 4 player games more forgiving overall and let you play with your robots. First box had like 7 modes in the rulebook. We're probably going to trim that down, and we're going to try to trim the rulebook down a little bit and kind of make it more concise. The biggest point of friction that I think all board games have is the setup and the learning, and we want to continuously hammer down on that. How can we make setup faster? How can we make learning faster? How can we make getting to those fun strategic decisions easier? And the ultimate answer will be, well, we should just make a video game. But we don't know how to program. So up until that point, we are going to be trying harder, more and more to keep Aegis as a complex, kind of really meaty, content-rich strategy game, while also not having it be super overwhelming. Those are our goals for Aegis 2. And also to be much prettier. I'm not doing a lot of the art in Aegis 2, sadly, but we have a great team of artists coming on to do the art for the new box, and they've done a lot of good art already. It'll still look very much in parity with Aegis 1. I wanted the game to be shinier and nicer. It's going to be one of the prettiest looking robot games on the market.
I'll certainly be looking forward to it, and I'm sure that those watching will as well.
Yeah, no, I hope so. We're going to be doing that Kickstarter hopefully early next year. Q1 next year is now the current goal.
And finally, as evidenced by the credits page in the rulebook, Aegis most certainly was not a one-man job. Although there's not enough time to thank everyone, are there any particular contributors to the project that you'd like to thank?
So yeah, you were right in saying that Aegis was not a one-man job. In fact, our rulebook credits is no less than like 60 or 70 people. Because when you make a game for 6 years and 1 million people touch it in all sorts of different ways, you just end up with a lot of names to reference. So I'm Breeze, I'm the creator and I'm the original director, and I kind of touched every single part of the game throughout its production, creatively and design-wise, and production-wise and sales and da-da-da-da-da. Sarah Como is our producer. She has kind of also been on the game since very early, and you can find her at pretty much every convention that we go to. She helps with all manner of things, logistical and meetings and administrative and financial and all this other stuff. Our game designers in the first box were my homeboys Jesse, who was kind of like the really genius-y math guy, who was on the game from pretty much the beginning. He did a lot of the math stuff. He made up some particular mechanics that I can directly attribute to him, like he made a parting shot and a few other things. Ryan's also been there for a long time. I can't actually tell you what he directly contributed, but I know he playtested the game and played the game and pitched the game and sold the game hundreds and hundreds of times. I forget if he suggested any particular mechanic. Sarah came up with jamming, one of the better mechanics that we have. Kettle's another very similar. Jesse's a very big mathy, balancy guy. He's very smart on that sort of end of things. So he and Jesse built some robots and some mechanics. Craig is my neighbor. He was actually the very first person to play the game, period. And then Ron Mitchell, who is an esports announcer guy these days. So he was very big into, you know, MOBAs and esports and stuff. And he was also very, very invaluable with playing the game's earliest portion. He was there, and he was very cool. Tom Wozencraft was one of the original founder dudes that we were doing the senior year project with. He helped put together the initial 2014 printing for PAX. We have myriad graphic designers. Dan Green is some dude that I met while working at a job, and he's a very talented graphic designer. He actually made the card template, a lot of the effect types, the logo of the game that you see and appreciate. He was the one to put those together. Kenny Howell did a lot of our other like ancillary graphic design. Like he did a bunch of the icons for the in-game tokens and a lot of the graphic design for a Kickstarter page, made the rulebook cover. And then of course there's me who like kind of tied all this together, and I made like edits to like a lot of Dan and Kenny's work. Daniel and Mangtuta, Daniel and Andrew Mingi Kim were the illustrators that did all the art for Aegis 1. Aside from me, Mong did some of the fancier robot art. He did like 12 or 15 pieces in the game. Daniel did all of our commanders, and Andrew Kim did our backgrounds that you see behind all the robots on all the cards. He really brought Sagaya's world to life with his interesting style. Daniel Olson, who did the commanders, is just incredibly talented with really pushing the design diversity of our characters. Because we have like 18 characters, and they're all very distinct. They all have a lot of personality. And he was a lot better at doing that than I was, even though I did a lot of the concept art for the characters. He's the one who really like sold the characters. And then Mong's just like an immensely talented. He's a good robot artist. Stephen Gibson is a Canadian, and he put together the box that we have. We didn't really have the budget to do a whole new illustration, so he actually took like some of Mong's illustrations and kind of like kit bashed them all together to make the box. Then it's a cool red and blue fruit roll-up box that you know and love. Emily did some touch-up artwork, did some touch-up color work on some robots. She did the sparkle effect on X's 100. And then we had like a whole myriad of editors: Epstein, Travis Hill, Zachary, Kettle's mom. His mom did a lot of the proofreading for the Aegis scenario book. That's cool. She's a novelist. Matthew Solomon did our Aegis theme music that we used in our Kickstarter video and our trailers and all that. Trevor Casterline did the video. He works for Greater Than Games now, where our games are warehoused. My buddy Chris Gergler helps me with money sometimes. Alex St. Martin really carried me through the first 3 years of this game when I was not very good at public speaking and pitching. We had some other friends, Heat, Pure Wipinishan, Lauren, who did a lot of just general helping, driving around, getting us food at conventions. And then we have some of the coolest interns in the world: Genevieve, Sean, and JJ. And Shanice did concept artwork like a long time ago that we're still kind of putting to use. She made a rough design for Luxiana's robot that ended up coming together, and we have some of the other designs that she did that are also going to show up later. We thanked all the people on the Greenbrier team, and we had like all of our friends and stuff from work and from college who helped us out at conventions many times, all the times we went to PAX in Boston. The top person on the special thanks is Thomas Tatro, who gave us the $500 to get into Indie Mega Booth the first time in 2014. He's at the top of the special thank list, followed by some other friends and then a lot of the premium backers on Kickstarter. The very last is Teresa Ulm, who gave me the laptop with the draw on the screen feature that I used to do all of the art for Aegis 1. So Aegis 1 would have not been possible if my laptop didn't kick the bucket one day and I went crying to my college professor about it, and she's like, wait a second, I have some trash for you in the closet here, just take this. And I'm like, okay, thank you. And then we ended up using that laptop for pretty much everything for a couple of years. That's the Aegis credits, the long rambling credits. And also, someone I forgot to put in the credits is Sarah Ribeiro, one of Sarah's friends, who was one of the miracle workers who threw together our print run in 2014 on the night of PAX. She and Sarah did all of that cutting and gluing and stuffing in boxes. I actually tragically forgot to put her in the rulebook. That's AEGIS' 70-man team. The Aegis 2's team is going to be significantly smaller because I'm doing a lot of the design and development along with some of our other designers, but you know, a lot of these people have gathered to the 4 wins, so it's a much tighter experience. It'll be like me, Jesse, Kettle, and then like our artists and Sarah, various, you know, interns and convention help, and a lot of the people on the Discord like will highlight Solid Gold Tech for all their help in playtesting too. Yeah, no, game big. Game require a lot of people.
Well, thank you very much for joining us and for letting us pick your brain.
No, thank you for having me on. This will be, I'm sure it'll be a fun little video.
Are there any last words you'd like to give before we go?
I think I've spoken enough. Look forward to Aegis 2's Kickstarter. Hopefully we can shatter the numbers that we did last time and continue making Aegis for years to come. We already have drafts and playtest stuff for Aegis 3, which will be another very different thing. And we'll hopefully be able to continue the dream with your help at home.
Thank you once again.
Thank you, Adam.
If you're interested in purchasing Aegis, learning more, or playing over Tabletop Simulator, links are included in the description. What about you? What do you think of Aegis? Do you think I should do more interviews in the future? If you have any questions, remarks, or opposing points of view, leave them in the comments down below, and please remember to like, share, subscribe, and ring that bell. Until next time, farewell, fellow fanatics. Thank you again for watching. I have plenty more to share with you if you're interested. You can click up here above my head to subscribe to my channel. You can click over here on my monitor to see the most recent video that I've worked on. Or if you prefer, you can click up here to open this mysterious vault and see what video that the YouTube algorithm has picked just for you.